Okay, guys. So I'm back. I do apologize for not reading the other chapter 2 earlier. I was at a funeral. My grandmother died, so I was really busy all last week, and so yeah. But I'm glad to be back home, so I could actually continue trying to do my work, and hopefully you guys will enjoy chapter 2. Last week, it was last week. I read the part where it says about the author, not the whole part, just about his life in Russia, the Soviet Union, the Third Reich, and about his time in Switzerland, where he spent most of World War II in Switzerland. And then I just skipped the preface. I skipped the translator's note, and I read chapter 1. Chapter 1 is called Introduction. And so chapter 2 is called On Resistance to Evil. So the book is called On Resistance to Evil by Force. Chapter 2, it's basically the same title, just by force at the end is missing. So, excuse me. So yeah, let's get into this. Let's start reading chapter 2. On Resistance to Evil. In the very approach to the problem, it is necessary to establish with clarity that no one among honest people thinks of or undertakes non-resistance to evil in the literal sense of the phrase, and one's tendency to such non-resistance transforms a person from a moral doctor and spiritual subject into a moral patient and an object of spiritual education. Hence, such people will not discuss the problems of non-resistance, but already about perpetrators there will be a dispute. What exactly is to be done with them, and how exactly should one resist them or something that is in them? In fact, what would non-resistance mean in the sense of absence of any resistance? This would mean accepting evil, letting it in and giving it freedom, scope, and power. If under these conditions the uprising of evil occurred and non-resistance continued, it would mean subordination to it, a surrender of the self to it, participation in it, and finally turning oneself into its instrument, into its body, into its cesspool, its plaything, and an absorbed element thereof. It would be a voluntary self-corruption and self-infection at the start, and the active spread of infection among other people and their involvement in its coordination by the end. But he who does not resist evil at all, who refrains from denouncing it or giving it reprimand, even though quite internally focused and silent, if that was possible, is already engaged in internal resistance fraught with practical conclusions and tensions, struggle and opposition. Moreover, for however long there is a dislike in the soul for at least a vague disgust, then the person still resists. He, perhaps, does not rise up in any way, but he is still divided. He fights within himself, and as a result, the very acceptance of evil fails him. Even while completely passive externally, he resists evil internally, condemns it, indignant, exposes it before himself, does not succumb to his fears and temptations, and even succumbing in part reproaches himself for it, gathers with the Spirit, resents himself, turns away from it, and is purified in repentance. Even when drowning, he resists and does not sink. But this is why the total absence of all resistance, both external and internal, requires that condemnation will be stopped, so that censure will cease, so that the approval of evil will prevail, Therefore, the non-resistor of evil sooner or later arrives at the need to assure himself that evil is not so bad, and that it is not so definitely evil, that it has some positive features, that there are many of them, that they may even predominate. And only insofar as he manages to talk himself out of voicing his healthy disgust and the assurances of black and white does he extinguish the remnants of resistance and self-realization. And when aversion subsides and evil is no longer experienced as evil, then acceptance imperceptibly becomes total. The soul begins to believe that black is white, adapts to match, becomes black itself, and finds what it approves and enjoys. And of course, this gives evil great pleasure. So right here, I would say, before I continue reading, there's not much left. Just a few more pages. Already there's some like condemnation of pacifism, basically. And I mentioned this in the last reading, how the author, he was not a fan of Leo Tolstoy and his anarcho-Christian, so-called Christian pacifism. And so already he just continues by explaining that, pacifism is basically, just the approval of evil right here. So he's not using these exact words that I'm saying, but it's basically straight up implied that pacifism, just by itself, is basically just the acceptance of evil. It's kind of like, in a way, Republicans are not necessarily pacifists, but then at the same time, like they believe in the equal rights of the liberal, the evil person, that their evil neighbors, their evil, I don't know, so like basically evil persons that live here in this country. They kind of believe that they basically everyone should have these rights to do evil, as long as it's not violating their personal property or something. As long as you don't do this on my property, right? You could do whatever you want in America. And today we have what we have today is because of this kind of passive behavior where you say, well, as long as it doesn't bother me personally, I'm all for your constitutional rights. And then look what we have today. And so, yeah, Republicans are not necessarily passive, but they're also kind of accepting of this evil, as if it's, the right of everyone to do whatever they want. And now we have what we have today because, and look at their children. Their children are basically liberals. So, yeah, already we have this attack on pacifism within the 1, 2, 3. So yeah, basically I'd say 2 paragraphs, just that, just 2 pages, page 7 and 8. It's technically, I just read the first 2 paragraphs, but paragraph number 2 just huge. I was losing my breath. Okay, let's continue. This is the spiritual law. The non-resistor to evil is absorbed by it and becomes possessed. For evil is not an empty word, not an abstract concept, not a mere logical possibility, and not a result of subjective evaluation. Evil is first and foremost the spiritual inclination of man, inherent in each of us, as if for some living within us there is a passionate desire to unbridle the beast inside, a gravitation that always strives to expand its field and to overtake us completely. In encountering refusals and prohibitions, encountering persistent restraints, and support the spiritual and moral facets of personal and social life, it seeks to seep through these obstacles, lull vigilance of conscience and sense of justice, weaken the power of shame and disgust, to adopt an acceptable appearance, and if possible, to then shatter and disintegrate these living facets, these nascent forms of the individual spirit, and as if it were to topple and rend asunder the strong-willed walls of the individual Kremlin. For those of you, just a quick pause, for those of you who don't know, the Kremlin is basically the ancient fortress that was built in Russia. And it's not just in Moscow, Russia. It's not just where the Russian president lives. Multiple cities in medieval Russia had fortresses called Kremlins. And so, basically with the Kremlin, if the city fell, at least the fortress will stand and they'll resist. And speaking of resistance to evil, right? So I think there's the Smolensk Kremlin, and there's other Kremlins in Russia, but these were these basically impregnable fortresses that were in different Russian cities. Not every city had them, but there were quite a few, Moscow included. And so they had these Kremlins where they would use to defend themselves, to resist. For example, when Ivan the Terrible, when Moscow sacked, he was safe inside the Kremlin. That fortress was impenetrable, basically. So the Tatars basically just sacked Moscow and then just leave the Kremlin alone because, because they had no chance, or they would just probably lose. So, yeah, but just a quick, side note right there. The spiritual education of a person consists in constructing these walls, and more importantly, in communicating the need and ability to build, maintain, and defend these walls. The sense of shame, the sense of duty, the living impulses of conscience and sense of justice, the need for beauty and spiritual protection for the living, the love of God and the motherland, all these sources of living spirituality and individual cooperative work create in man those spiritual necessities and impossibilities. I'll go back. All these sources of living spirituality and individual and cooperative work create in man those spiritual necessities and impossibilities that consciousness gives the form of beliefs, and with which the unconscious forms a noble character. And these spiritual drives to act just so, and the impossibility of acting differently, give unity and certainty to personal being. They form a kind of spiritual order, as if they were a living backbone of the personal spirit, supporting its structure, its formalized being, informing it of its might and power. The softening of the spiritual backbone, the disintegration of the spiritual way of life, would mean the spiritual end of the personality, its transformation into a sacrifice of bad passions and external influences, its return to that chaotically permissive state where there are no spiritual necessities and spiritual possibilities are incalculable. It is clear, the more spineless and unprincipled the man is, the closer he is to this state, and the more natural it is for him to not resist evil. And conversely, the less a person resists evil, the more he approaches the state, flattering his beliefs and shaking his own character. The non-resistor himself breaks the walls of his spiritual Kremlin. He himself takes the poison from which the bones in his body soften. And it is natural that from non-resistance, evil passion expands its dominance to fullness. Chunks of passion, already ennobled, discard their garments of nobility and pour into a common rebellion. They no longer hold the line and barricade, but they themselves indulge in the former enemy and embrace evil with vivacity. The evil obsession becomes total and draws the soul on its own paths, according to its own laws. Obsessed with an evil passion, the non-resistor runs rampant, because he himself has rejected all that restrains, directs, and formulates. All his non-resisting force becomes the power of the most thunderous evil, and the breath of death feeds upon the cruelty of a most helpless demise. This is why the end of his frenzy is the end of his psychic and bodily existence, insanity or death. Such a decomposition of spirituality in the soul may emerge in a weak person in adulthood, but it can also begin in childhood, and moreover, the original seed of spirituality potentially available to each person may not be nourished to full life due to an active initiative, or it turns out as a result of internal weakness and external temptations, creatively unviable and sterile. In any case, a picture of the internal ailment is composed, which has great psychopathological significance and interest. A person who has been spiritually defective since childhood can develop in himself a special mental structure, which, if superficially observed, can be mistaken for character and special viewpoints that are often mistaken for beliefs. In fact, he, being unprincipled and spineless, remains always a slave to his bad passions, a prisoner of elaborate mental mechanisms that possess him and reign all-powerful in his life, devoid of spiritual dimension and divining the contours of his disgusting behavior. He does not resist them, but deviously enjoys their game, forcing naive people to accept his evil obsessions as will, his instinctive scheming as the mind, the impulses of his evil passions as feelings. Wrapping himself in anti-spiritual passions, he pronounces his nature in a corresponding anti-spiritual ideology, in which radical and comprehensive godlessness merges with its own excruciating sickness of the heart and complete moral idiocy. Naturally, spiritually healthy people cause such a person only irritation and anger, and foment in him a sick love for power, in the manifestations of which flashes of megalomania inevitably alternate with outbursts of maniacal persecution. Oh wow. Yeah, this whole part right here, page 10, this whole section right here, it kind of reminds me of certain YouTubers and streamers. I feel like it's Destiny and Vaush. You go and listen to what they have to say a lot of times on moral issues, and what's interesting is that it just seems like it's been written about them, about how they would support certain beliefs. Right here, he does not resist. Okay, so basically, he does not resist his passions. So he's a slave to his passions. This type of person, and he does not resist them, but deviously enjoys their game, forcing naive people to accept his evil obsession as will, his instinctive scheming as the mind, the impulses of his evil passions as feelings. Wrapping himself in anti-spiritual passions, he pronounces his nature in a corresponding anti-spiritual ideology, in which radical and comprehensive godlessness merges with his own excruciating sickness of the heart and complete moral idiocy. So basically, Vaush and Destiny and all these other streamers out there on YouTube, they're promoting their own degenerate behavior. They're saying, "Oh, this is normal as long as you're not hurting others, as long as you're, kind of doing this, within the, I guess, on your property, right? As long as you're not forcing your views on others, right? It's okay to do this, right? It's okay to do this morally a disgusting thing." And of course, Vaush and Destiny, and I'm picking on these two right now. There's a whole list of other YouTubers I could name, just not at the top of my head at the moment. But basically, these are just examples that I'm using, Vaush and Destiny. But these people, as described right here in this book, page 10 of chapter 2, it says, complete moral idiocy. And they're basically idiots. They're immoral, and they have their own passions that they follow that they want to normalize, right? So normalize this, normalize that, right? And so, like, what do you have, right? You have, like, basically immoral behavior. And so, like, this immoral behavior is promoted by these people, these immoral people, because they're moral idiots. They have moral idiocy. Yeah. So I just decided to take a little break from reading that. So, but let's continue. So we're still on page 10. After the spiritual ills that broke out over the world in the first quarter of the 20th century, it is not difficult to imagine that we have a picture of such people, obsessed with malice, people of an aggressive fanaticism. Sorry, quick pause again. Right here, obsessed with malice, people of an aggressive fanaticism. Now, the aggressive fanaticism, it's probably more like political, I'm assuming, but the obsessed with malice, it just kind of like remind me of these pranksters on YouTube who just go to the extreme. In London, England, you have that one kid who just runs around, does like the most extreme pranks, and they're not even funny. They're just like not cool. They're just very antisocial behavior. He acts like it's normal. He's trying to figure out, why aren't you guys normalizing me? Like, I don't get this. You're persecuting me, right? He's obsessed with his malice right here, and that's just one example. There's plenty of other stuff that you see on social media. You see other things about crazy people in the world. They're full of malice, and they're trying to figure out, why don't you support their malice? You know, you're an evil. You're basically evil, right? So we're the ones trying to resist actual evil, but they're trying to reverse things for us by saying that we're evil. And right here, if we go up, I believe right here somewhere, trying to find it, or was it like a previous page? I think it's probably page 9 or 8. Right, I think I lost it. I'm sorry, people. Oh, right here, on page 8. Yes, I was right, page 8. And when aversion subsides and evil is no longer experienced as evil, then acceptance of imperceptibly becomes total. The soul begins to believe that black is white. So black, right here, is just referring to like evil things, right? White, purity. And so, like, that's what he means by black and white. In case some of you start having questions, what do you mean by black, right? But the soul begins to believe that black is white, adapts to match, becomes black itself, and finds that it approves and enjoys, and of course, this gives evil great pleasure. So right here, like, this part of page 8, and then right here in this little section, this section of page 10, like it just mentions people obsessed with malice, and so like it just confirms what I said about that one example on YouTube or TikTok. I think it's TikTok, where this prankster just goes too far. Like, his pranks are no longer funny. Then there's another prankster on YouTube and TikTok. He's in America. He's not in London. Basically, like he'll literally walk up, threaten to physically harm somebody, and like it gets to a point where it's about to get super dangerous, and then at the very last second he goes, "Oh, it's just a prank." Right? It's just to the extreme where, like in a video where the guy's willing to risk his own life for malice, basically. Like, there's some guy fueling. The guy was, I think, putting fuel into his truck, and the so-called prankster grabs a lighter, and he's all like, asks him questions if he's ready to die or something, I don't know, or says something about his life is in his hands, And, at that point, hey, okay, like this prank is not really a prank anymore. It's no longer funny. You're playing with another person's life and your own life. And this malice, he's become obsessed with it, right? He's enjoying the evil. And so anyone who criticizes, anyone who makes fun of him is viewed as, evil in his eyes. Oh no, like what I'm doing is good. I'm just having a good time. It's just a joke. Why are you persecuting me for my pranks, right? And so like the evil people would start to demand that their evil be accepted, or else you're crazy, you're not normal. But yeah, let's just keep reading. So, okay. In contrast, every mature religion not only reveals the nature of good, but also teaches the struggle against evil. The entirety of pre-Christian Eastern asceticism has two inclinations: the negative one, struggle, and the positive one, absolution. This is precisely not the weapons of the world, which the Apostle Paul explains to the Corinthians. However, nowhere it seems is this internal resistance to evil developed with such depth and wisdom as that found in the ascetic teachers of Eastern Orthodoxy, personifying the origins of evil in the image of immaterial demons. Anthony the Great, Macarius the Great, Mark the Ascetic, Ephraim the Syrian, John of the Ladder, and others teach tireless inner battle with unseen and non-violent attached evil thoughts, and John Cassian explicitly points out that no one can be deceived by the devil, but one who has chosen to yield to him the consent of his own will. Well, like basically, quick pause, sorry guys, let's do a quick pause. So, yeah, like you could, like for example, you buy like some Ouija board, then some weird things happen in your house. Well, that's on you. Like no one actually forced you. It's there, that temptation's there, but you gave in to that temptation. So yeah, like that's on you. And it's not just the Ouija board. That's just one example. There's other examples where just certain movies you could watch, certain things. Certain stuff a lot of men, we men struggle with, especially with the internet or movies that we could watch, right? Certain thoughts we have, especially if a lot of us aren't married, like we have this struggle. So yeah, and so we could see how this, if we all give in to our passions, how it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous, and we have to constantly pray. We have to constantly confess our sins. So yeah, so constantly pray, constantly confess. And also try to partake in Holy Communion every Sunday as much as you can. Okay, let's keep going. So, the spiritual experience of mankind testifies that the non-resistor of evil does not resist it precisely insofar as he himself is already evil. Because he has internally accepted it and become it. Therefore, a proposal that sometimes crops up during periods of acute temptation to indulge in evil, in order to get rid of it and be renewed by it, always comes from these layers of the soul, or respectively, from those people who have already surrendered and thirst for further fall. This is the secret voice of the evil itself. There is no doubt that Count Leo Tolstoy and the moralists adjoining him do not at all call for such total non-resistance, which would be tantamount to voluntary moral self-deprivation, and he who would try to understand them in this sense would be wrong. On the contrary, their idea is precisely that the struggle against evil is necessary, but that it must be transferred entirely to the inner world of man. And moreover, when it comes to a person who conducts this struggle within himself, such a resistor of evil can find in their writings even an extensive amount of useful advice. Non-resistance, about which they write and speak, does not mean internal surrender and adherence to evil. On the contrary, it is a special kind of resistance: repudiation, condemnation, rejection, and opposition. Their non-resistance means resistance and struggle, however, only by certain favored means. They accept the goal, overcoming evil, but they make a peculiar choice of ways and means. Their art is not so much a doctrine of evil, but of how exactly one should not overcome it. It goes without saying that only in considering the struggling nature of their non-resistance are we given grounds to philosophically discuss their statements. However, such a discussion cannot embrace either the formulation of the question put forward by them, nor especially by the answer they give. Okay, so that was chapter 2. So right here, the spiritual experience of mankind testifies that non-resistor. Yeah, so basically right here, so mankind does not resist because he has already become evil. He's already evil because he has internally accepted it and become it. So this is a very powerful statement, you know. So like basically when we give in to our passions, like have we become this? Like are we this? And so that's why we're constantly renewed. Like whenever we're confessing and we're taking part in communion, we're trying to renew ourselves. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle for many of us. Therefore, a proposal that sometimes crops up during periods of acute temptation to indulge in evil in order to get rid of it and be renewed by it. It always comes from these layers of the soul, or respectively from those people who have already surrendered and thirst for further fall. So yeah, it's like basically, you know, you have like one temptation and then you kind of give in to this temptation. And then you want more. It's basically a drug. You know, it's basically a narcotic that you're addicted to. It's this addiction. And it's possession too. It's basically like I just read it too. Okay, I just read it. So I think it's the previous page. I literally just read it. Oh, it's right here. Explicitly points out that no one can be deceived by the devil, but one who has chosen to yield to him the consent of his own will. So yeah, like I said, if you like try to once you give yourself in to one thing, you start get lost, and you just continue getting lost in this thing, and it's hard to get rid of. It's hard to shake off. Yeah, it's a huge spiritual struggle that a lot of us deal with, and and what's interesting is that this spiritual struggle, it then basically spills out onto the political realm. So like earlier, I mentioned about Vaush and Destiny and other YouTubers who are basically trying to like change our society into accepting their immorality. Like they want to say, oh, this is normal. Our immorality is normal, and you should just leave us alone, right? Leave us alone, right? We just want to get married, right? And that's it. We just want to get married, right? look where we are right now. And so, like it's all like these increments, right? You fall into your temptations, and here's the thing: you as an individual, you fall into your temptations. But then, when you think about it, our society's falling into these temptations, right? So you're giving room for all sorts of other spiritual entities to enter your life, your family, your home, and it affects the people around you. And so, like, so many individuals are doing this. Society is now doing this to itself. this spiritual decay that we are facing right now. And so it does spill over into the political realm. Now we have this want to promote all sorts of perversions. First, it was, marrying these people. Let's marry these people, right? Let's consider what they have, their perversion, as a marriage, and then pretty soon you're going to see all sorts of other perversions being promoted as normal and healthy, and how we should bless their unions as marriage unions. And like our society just going downhill, and then pretty soon it's like, well, if you resist, for example, if you're like, I don't know, like a white person who's trying to fight back against minorities who are attacking you, you're evil for resisting. Don't you know that they're struggling? Despite the fact that you are struggling yourself, okay, that's, you're evil for resisting, or defending your wife, for example. Let's say your wife's in trouble, and some criminals just grab your wife. They're about to do some vile things to her. You protect her, right, by any means possible, whether it's, lethal force, whether you just scare them off, whatever, but you protect your wife. And society pretty soon is going to say, how dare you? Don't you know, like, those so-called criminals, they have urges, and it's just normal to have these biological evolutionary urges. They have to release them, and your wife was the only woman available, right? Like, imagine like the disgusting behavior that's slowly creeping into our society. Already we have certain people, I don't really want to mention them on YouTube right now, but certain people of a certain community, they're already trying to put certain maps on their thing, if you know what I mean by that. They're trying to accept that as normal. So imagine, basically, we're not far off from a bunch of criminals who want to do vile things to your wife. And how dare you protect your wife? Don't you know your wife was supposed to give in? Right now, our society, because feminism is, like, on the one hand trying to protect women from these vile, evil things, attempting, right, apparently. But pretty soon, there will be this counter argument from a biological, evolutionary, secular perspective that, well, certain people have certain urges, right? And so your wife may not necessarily need the protection. She just must understand that these men are suffering with these urges. So, like, if she's the first available woman they see, and they can't afford, a woman of the night, well, like, there you go. Like, your woman had no right to resist. How dare you? How dare you defend yourself against these people? How dare you defend your family? Like, how dare you use lethal force to protect your wife? And pretty soon, they're going to start asking, how dare you protect your children? How dare you use lethal force to protect your children? Also, they're not your children. They're the state's children anyway, right? This is what it's coming to right now. Like, this is like very dark stuff. And like, I'm reading this, and I feel like it's just talking about our society here in the West, in the United States. Like, wow, like chapter 2, it's very deep. Like, regarding, where we are right now. So yeah, so this is what the non-resistors have led us to. Oh, don't resist, right? Don't worry. Like, basically, kill them with love, right? It's like, well, sometimes, like, I might have to beat someone up just because I care about them. It's like, yeah, if I punch you in the face, maybe it's because I'm trying to love, maybe it's because I do love. I love others, I want to protect them, right? And also, by punching you in the face, I probably saved your life, right? Probably saved you from committing more horrible acts. So, yeah, but you have these pacifists who are saying, oh, just kill them with love, right? Don't do anything, don't resist. And so it just leads to evil. It leads to the acceptance of evil. For example, this might sound like it's off topic, but like where I live, right? Like, nice rural community. Then all of a sudden, like, we're now having HOAs popping up out of nowhere. Like, lots of good lands being given away to these HOAs in these cheaply made houses that cost between $200,000, $300,000, and HOAs being built for people who are not from the country, from people who are not even from the state, from people who are from like New York City, right? From that cesspool, they're coming down here to our rural areas here, and now they're trying to enforce, because here's the thing, right now they're not enforcing anything, but these are voters, these are potential voters. So these people, if they move into these HOA communities, these brand new HOA communities that are being built here in our rural areas, guess what? They're going to vote, and they're going to vote for politicians who are just going to support evil, because the evil people are coming down here now. They're coming to our territory. And so so basically, when I try to explain to my relatives, I'm saying, I don't want these HOAs being built here. I don't want any New Yorkers coming here. I'm not saying all New Yorkers are evil people, but the ones that are coming down here, right? They're coming here for financial reasons, and they're going to vote against my interests, against the interests of the local community here. And so I try to explain to my relatives, this is wrong, and they're saying, oh well, what do you have against them? So what if they want to live here? I'm thinking, you don't get it. They're going to vote against you. They're going to vote to destroy your life, right? So basically, this idea, oh, these are people like us, they're just like us, right? No, they're not like us. These are different people, and these are evil people, and I don't want them living here. I don't want them living in their HOAs. I don't want the HOA to exist here. I liked my rural community the way it existed. Now we have too many people here in my rural community that should not even be here, and they're going to vote. They're going to vote for the most evil things. They're going to vote for against my interests, against the interests of the community. So do you guys really want that? And I try to explain it, and some friends, relatives, they just don't get it. But yeah, but chapter 2 right here is a good chapter. It's a very good read. Of course, the way Ivan Ilyin, the way he writes, his style is just it's just I don't know, there's almost no pause. He just keeps writing. Yeah, for example, a lot of his paragraphs are big paragraphs, and just constant commas. He's continuing the sentence. It's basically he has huge paragraphs, but when you look at the paragraph carefully, it's just basically 2 sentences. It's just 2 very long sentences. Yeah. So yeah, right now, if you guys want to donate through Streamlabs, I don't see any chats right now. Any chats? Let me see. Alright, guys, well, I guess there are no chats. So, but if you guys want to go donate in the Streamlabs, the link should be in the description. It should be in the chat box. So if you guys want to at least help support the channel, just give a donation. Do that. And on that note, I think I'll hold on. Yeah, if I could find it.
You don't need to stress about.
No, that's not what I was looking for. But yeah, I'd say I think I'll probably do chapter 3 pretty soon. Maybe tomorrow. Honestly, maybe tonight. I don't know if I'll keep staying up tonight. Well, I don't know if I'll stay up too late, but maybe I'll do chapter 3 tonight. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Or maybe I'll do a different stream with my co-host, Not a Spy. Hopefully he'll join me soon, and we could come up with a different topic to talk about. Yeah, this book is very, very interesting so far. But chapter 2 really hit me. It hit me hard, I'd say, because it just feels like it's talking about our society right now. It just feels like it's about us. It's about how we live, about like our modern world, and it's like kind of prophetic in a way. Ivan Ilyin just basically, like, I'm thinking, how does he know about this? Like, how does he know that the woke movement, or how did he know that the woke movement, like, it's going to just take over the United States, basically. And it's just amazing. Yeah. So, I guess on that note, I don't know. Like, I'll probably read tonight or tomorrow, like chapter 3. But I'm definitely gonna take a break. I need to get some dinner. Probably some dinner, some dessert, because really didn't eat much all day today. Right, guys. So that note, I'm going to close out with some Soviet metal. I'm reading a book by an anti-Soviet guy, and then I'm going to close out the night with some Soviet metal. So enjoy.